Welcome to the Essence of Health Tea Time podcast. I am your host, Dr. Shayla 𝐲𝐿 As a double board certified family and obesity medicine physician with over 12 years of experience in medicine, I teach motivated individuals how to achieve their desired quality of life while preventing and reversing chronic diseases. It's tea time. Welcome to part 2 of this episode with Dr. Dana Gibbs on the T on your thyroid, testing toxins and truth. If you have not listened to the previous episode, take a moment, pause right here, and go back to listen to part 1 of this episode with Dr. Gibbs, and then dive in for more of the T on your thyroid. And now, even when we talk about stress, we know, and what I do like is that within the medical literature, we are finding out more and more about the impacts of chronic stress.
Oh
But
my gosh,
to us,
yes.
about that as it relates to our thyroid gland and the
Oh,
cascading effects from that.
yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, there's a whole nother hour there.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to bring
Um,
you back for sure.
that would be great.
Yeah.
But so in brief, okay, so when you have stress, whether it's mental stress or you just ran a marathon or you're trying to diet, so you're starving yourself, all of those are stressful to your body, and your body only has, it's like a carpenter who only has a hammer. Your body only has one way to respond to stress, and that's to release a whole lot of adrenaline and cortisol.
Right.
And cortisol, when it's high, it feeds back on your brain and it turns off your TSH. It doesn't turn it off, but it turns it down to where even if you don't have enough thyroid hormone circulating, your brain is stopped telling your thyroid to make more because it has turned down or turned off your TSH. So your thyroid gland kind of goes on vacation. But it does one more thing that's really, really insidious, and that's the fact that high levels of stress turns on the enzyme set that makes that reverse T3 that I was talking about, that makes the blocker of the active thyroid hormone. And if you don't measure it, you have no idea.
Right. Yeah.
You have no idea.
Yeah.
One other thing that stress does, and people don't realize this either, is that high levels of cortisol increases something called insulin resistance. And insulin resistance is something that you can be born with, but it's also something that comes as a result of a direct result of stress.
Mhm.
As a matter of fact, it's an immediate part of the stress response. And, it's meant to help us survive. It's meant to help us survive a war, a famine, an animal attack, a
Exactly.
severe illness. It is not meant to help us survive your boss yelling at you.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So when you get that stress response because something negative in your life happened to you, but you're not actually going to die from it, your body's like, okay, I just dumped all this blood sugar because I was ready to run from the tiger. And now all this blood sugar is floating around in my system. What am I going to do with it? Well, gonna pack it on as fat.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Which is, why we are seeing more and more things as related to insulin resistance conditions, especially
Yeah.
I feel like in America, where there's always something, going on. We're
I
in the
just
political climate right now that,
turn off the
stress and
TV. I
right.
cannot.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
cannot for
Mhm.
my own health and
And
sanity.
even from a standpoint, those studies that have shown that we tend to get less vacation and take less vacation than,
Ugh.
other parts of the world. And so that just
Mhm.
impacts and compounds that chronic stress that we're just constantly
Yes.
exposed to. And
Yes.
like you said, it just feeds into a lot of these metabolic conditions and these other conditions that we're seeing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then let's touch on gut health a bit because I
Oh
feel
boy.
my personal agenda has been to talk to more and more people about their gut because I feel like it's just been so overlooked. But we
Sure.
are learning, more and more things that our gut, relates to so much. So tell us a bit
Yeah.
about our gut health and our thyroid function.
Sure. Okay. So thyroid, of course, we just talked about how thyroid overlaps with insulin resistance so
Mm.
much. And if you don't have adequate thyroid function, and your GI motility is slowed down, then a couple of different things happen. The first one is that the fruit and the fiber and all the stuff that you eat is not transitioning through as fast as it should. And so the good bacteria that are in your colon are being starved of the nutrients that they
Right.
need. So if, say if you drink a soda and it's got high fructose corn syrup in it, your body can absorb that so fast with no effort, with no gut motility, with no nothing. And it never gets past the second part of your small intestine. That sweet stuff never gets down into your gut to do what it should do. If you eat a piece of high fiber fruit and it has adequate speed to go through your GI tract and get to your colon, then it feeds those healthy bacteria. So they make, guess what? They make GLP-1. Everybody's heard of GLP-1 these days.
Right.
It makes it naturally in your gut because you ate fiber and it had a chance to get through to the bacteria that can do the right thing with it.
Mhm.
If you don't have thyroid, that stuff just sits in your small intestine and it causes like SIBO, it causes bacterial overgrowth in the wrong places in your intestine. It causes chronic constipation. It causes bloating. It causes all kinds of problems.
Right. Yeah, even
You
like
know,
that example, you gave us with your friend who, was suffering from the
oh,
constipation and
yeah. I
from
mean,
the
she's
effects of
extreme.
Yeah.
She's super extreme, but I see it all the time. I see
Mhm.
people with chronic constipation and really bad GI upset. And it's, and it's not necessarily because they're eating a bunch of junk food. A
Right.
lot of them aren't. A lot of
Mhm.
them are eating very little because they're trying really, really hard not to gain any more weight. And yeah, if they don't have adequate thyroid function, they feel like, something terrible is wrong.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, but it just speaks, to that balance that, we
Hmm.
do have to put those good things in, like you
Oh
mentioned,
yeah.
so that we get these good outcomes from our
Hmm.
bodies in
Yeah.
return. So what, with that in mind, what are some of the particular nutritional foods that you typically suggest for your patients in terms of their thyroid health?
Sure. So I generally am recommending a Mediterranean diet for everybody. And when I say a Mediterranean diet, the Mediterranean diet is higher levels of omega-3 fatty acids and fish, ocean wild caught fish, and lots of green and red and yellow and all the colors of the rainbow vegetables and a little bit of fruit and not a whole lot of bread, not a whole lot of grain based products. One of the things that I see, particularly in the patients who have the Hashimoto's disease, is that there's a lot of overlap with food allergies and food sensitivities.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that's the reason why this very, very strict diet called autoimmune paleo has kind of gained popularity and it's taken hold. And a lot of the online thyroid coaches are like, oh, well, if you're not doing autoimmune paleo, you're doing things wrong, blah, blah, blah. And my idea about that is a little bit more nuanced, and that is that there is a ton of overlap with food allergies and food
Right.
sensitivities, and that if you don't know what foods you're sensitive to, it kind of makes sense to eliminate almost everything and then one at a time add them back and
Hmm.
see what bothers you and see what you can get away with. But all the pro-inflammatory stuff that we eat here in the US, the processed seed oils are horrible.
Yep.
The soy products, I really, really don't like soy products for people who have thyroid problems, unless it's fermented. Now,
Right.
your
Hmm.
tofu and your kimchi and your
Yeah.
fermented soy sauce that's wheat free. I'm totally okay with those things. But the unfermented soy, I really don't think humans ought
And
to
I'm
be
glad you
eating it.
mentioned the difference because a lot of people do. They take that and they run with it when, the culprits really are a lot of those processed things, those hydrolyzed soy you definitely want to stay away from because there's
Awful.
so much wrong with it. But then people will take that to say that, oh, they said no soy, soy is bad. But there are some health benefits, like you said, to that we know about these more fermented, less processed forms of soy in terms of
Yeah.
our immune system and in terms of our health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But grains in general, in the US in particular, the grains are hybridized to the point where they have a lot of, like, there's one particular chemical called phytate, phytate, and phytate stops you from absorbing iron from your food. And so it makes me laugh. I see this box of Special K and they're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, it's iron fortified or whatever." And I'm just like, yeah, they have to iron fortify it because
Because
you're
they've killed it
absorbing your
all from
because it
everything.
blocked all your iron
Yeah.
absorption just from eating it.
Yeah.
And it makes me laugh a
Mhm.
little bit. But
Yeah, but no, you're right, and that's, is part of the problem with a lot of the other kind of just off the shelf grains that we eat too, is a lot of the toxins and things that they've been treated with, and so
yes,
it does.
that
It
too. Yeah.
affects, yeah, our body's ability to absorb them and utilize them as we should, from that standpoint.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're frustrated with your weight, taking more medications than you like to, have been told that you are at risk for the development of a chronic preventable disease, or just are not feeling in the best of health, then I'm talking to you. Why? Because you're tired of fat dieting. You know it's time for a change, and you want a sustainable plan to improve your health. If you have found yourself at this place in life, well, I have developed a program that's just for you. It's called The Essence of Health, and it's your prescription for transformation. My goal with this program is to give you the tools needed to create sustainable lifestyle changes within a group coaching setting, along with one-to-one individualized coaching to give you a personalized path to health that's just for you. The benefits are priceless, so join today. Head on over to 𝐲𝐡𝐞 to learn more. The essence of health is in you.
So yeah, minimal grains and then minimal sweets. And this is less to do with the thyroid itself and more to do with the insulin resistance, which I literally think probably 70% of Americans have. And if you don't have it now, then once you go into menopause, you're going to have it. You might as well get ready now. Is that when you, even an artificial sweetener, even a stevia, anything with a sweet taste, when you put it on your tongue, when you swallow it, when you taste it, it tells your body, up, sugar is coming, dump some insulin. Here we
Right.
go. But it also trains your brain, trains your body to be looking for that dopamine hit that you get from that extremely sweet, whatever it is. And so then you crave it.
Exactly.
And so
Yeah, eats into
if
those
you
things.
have insulin resistance, if you have the tendency to gain weight easily, if you have the tendency to elevated blood sugar, which many, many of us do, the more sweet you give yourself, even if it does no calories in it, the more you crave more carbs because you're dumping insulin. And now your blood sugar is going to go down and your adrenaline is going to go up and it's going to dump some more, insulin. And it becomes this vicious cycle where, okay, yeah, you had your Diet Coke, but then you ate a Big Mac,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
you were so hungry because your body dropped your blood sugar. So people with
Right.
insulin resistance sometimes bounce from hypoglycemia to hyperglycemia to hypo to hyper. And if
Mhm.
you have that experience, then anything sweet is not your friend.
Right. And that's one of the hardest things, me being in the obesity med field, that's one of the
Mm-hmm.
hardest things too to explain to patients is that, just because you had a Diet Coke on the side of, your hamburger meal, you didn't really do yourself any favors there by
No.
having that
No,
diet.
actually there's
Yeah.
research that shows that people who use diet sweeteners
They actually consume more
eat more
calories.
calories
Yeah.
than people who don't.
Yeah. Hmm.
But and I try to get people to do this because if you will go 10 days with nothing sweet and without flour, without those rapid release carbs in your diet, you'll stop craving them
Hmm.
and you'll want to eat more healthy stuff.
Right.
And it's kind of amazing how that
Yeah.
works.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, because then you'll taste the other stuff and it'll be like, ooh, this is like too sweet,
Right.
So,
I eat a
uh-huh.
carrot and I'm like, wow, these carrots are really sweet. And people are like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, yes,
Right.
they are really sweet.
Yeah, 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 for sure. And now talk to us about some of these environmental toxins that act as endocrine disruptors that
Oh
we're seeing a
boy,
little bit more about them, but tell us.
man, you're
And I know
covering all
this
the
is a whole
bases
nother
today.
episode too, but
It
yeah.
is a whole nother episode. Okay. Well, so here's an easy one. So here's my drink bottle. It's a stainless steel drink bottle.
I like that saying on it too, hydrate or die.
Hydrate or die, right? I use an osmosis filter and I put my water in a steel bottle because I don't want plastic to touch my water.
Mhm.
Because plastic has bisphenols, polychlorinated bisphenols. It has conditioners. It has, PCBs. That's the thing you hear, and BPA. And they can mark the plastic BPA free all they want to, but truth of the matter is, if it's plastic, it's got some kind of chemical in it. And just because it isn't BPA doesn't mean it's safe and doesn't mean it's not doing wrong things to your endocrine system and releasing chemicals into the water you're drinking or into the food that you're eating. So if you cook food in a stainless steel pan and then you put it in Tupperware and then you reheat it in the microwave, you've just put a bunch of plasticizers into the food.
Right.
So one of the easy things that I tell people is stop storing your food in plastic containers.
Mhm.
Very, very simple thing you can do. Another simple thing that you can do is you can start checking your beauty products, your skincare, your shampoo, your hairspray, your lotion, your whatever. Um, there are two apps that I like for this, and I'm not financially involved in either one of them, but one of them is called Skin Deep and the other one's called Think Dirty. And what you do is basically you point the camera of your phone at the ingredients list and it tells you, it scans it and it tells you, is there something harmful in there? Boom,
Ah,
don't buy
that's great.
this.
I hadn't heard of those. So yeah,
Yeah, no, it's really,
for
really good
listeners, I'll put those in the show
because
notes. Yeah.
a ton of our exposure to these endocrine disruptors comes through our beauty products, and we don't even
Mhm.
think about that.
Right.
And it's really, really easy to go online and go, okay, I would like to avoid this chemical, this chemical, this chemical. What beauty product can I pick? And there's all kinds of advice that you can find about what's less toxic. I mean,
Sure.
cleaning products, you can use vinegar.
Mhm.
Vinegar is amazing stuff. It cleans
Yeah.
better than Windex without the perfume and all this nasty stuff that's in it.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. And thank you for even just those few little tips,
Just little tidbits.
right, just to touch the surface of it to get folks
Right.
started. Yeah. Yeah. All right. And then one last question, Dr.
Sure.
Dana here. So in terms of non-pharmacological approaches, what are just a few things that you have seen within your patient base that have been helpful from a non-pharmacological standpoint for their thyroid conditions?
Sure, absolutely. So it's funny because I was looking at your Facebook right before we came on, and you were talking about vitamin D, and I really, really have to concur that yes, you can take cod liver oil, and but I really feel like anybody who's not a lifeguard on Huntington Beach in California or in Fort Lauderdale or whatever, anybody who is not outside in shorts and short sleeves every single day is not getting enough vitamin D, particularly people who sit behind a computer all day like I do.
Right.
The darker your skin is and the farther north you live, the worse that gets. And
Right.
so supplementing your vitamin D with D3 and K together really dramatically helps your immune system. And if you're worried you might be susceptible to Hashimoto's disease, like say your mom had it, that's one very easy thing that you can do. It takes 1 second a day. It costs pennies and it's absolutely worth doing. But as far as non-pharmacology, getting your sleep, holy cow. There's just about nothing more important than getting good sleep. Really, really, really. And if you are one of these people who can't sleep, then you need to get your thyroid checked out because it might already be messed up.
Mhm.
That was a huge part. I didn't even mention it, but that was a huge part of my problems when I was at my worst, was that I would be cold. I would be cold when I was trying to lay down to go to bed. I could pile 4 blankets and a down comforter on top of me, and I would lay there for an hour, and my feet were so cold that I couldn't fall asleep.
Mhm.
And then, if I would get up, I would go to the shower, I would soak my feet in the hot water long enough to just run and jump back in the bed so that I could fall asleep. And then I would wake up later just drenched in sweat. And I was not menopausal. I mean, that's a
Right. Yeah.
menopausal kind
Yeah.
of sounding thing, and it is, but it's also a thyroid thing.
Mhm.
This hot and cold, this night sweats. And so if you're giving yourself an adequate opportunity for sleep, you're giving yourself the 8 hours, you're turning off your screens, you're cooling the room, you're doing all the things, and you're still not getting adequate sleep, get your thyroid checked. And then if that's fine, then look at sleep apnea, because that's another ENT thing that I talk about all the
Right. Right. Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's huge. And then for people who are trying to diet, for people who want to lose weight, really strict calorie restriction is a recipe for ruining your thyroid. Yes, cut out sugar. Yes, cut out starchy carbs. Yes, eat as much healthy fats as you want at first when you're trying to start losing weight. But don't do the aggressive calorie restriction, because literally your body thinks you're starving. It will turn your thyroid off. It will raise your reverse T3. It happens like if you fast for 24 or 48 hours, your reverse T3 will be sky high by day 2. And it turns your thyroid off. It turns your set point down to where you don't burn calories, where you conserve them.
Yeah.
So
And I'm glad
those
you
are
spoke to
2.
that. Yeah, because
su-
it's important, for people to eat healthfully and not just to say, oh, well, just stop eating, because we need food for nourishment. So
Well, I
yeah,
mean, that's a big part of it, is that nutritional deficiency is seen by your body as stress. And we already talked about what stress does.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate all of this insightful information that you've given us. And so, Dr. Dana, how can my audience connect with you?
Sure. So the easiest way at this point is that I just started a new podcast. It is called
Awesome.
Beyond the Thyroid, and it is available on all the podcast apps. And I'm going to be putting out content every week. So, really excited about that. Then the next place would be my website, which is www.danagibbsmd.com. And my medical practice is in Texas.
Awesome.
So that's the big ones. And I'm on Instagram and I'm on the socials. So you can find me that way as well,
Wonderful.
Dana Gibbs
Wonderful.
MD.
Yep. And I'll be sure to have all of that in the show notes for our listeners so that they can connect with you. Awesome. Well, thank
Awesome.
you so much.
Thank you for having me. This was really fun.
Thank you for joining me today on the Essence of Health Tea Time podcast. Click the subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform so that you never miss a moment of the Essence of Health Tea Time podcast. Check out the show notes to obtain your free tips for healthy living guide to get you started on your health and wellness path. Follow me on social media at Essence of Health Wellness Clinic on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and at dr.tw@EOHWC on TikTok. Interested in becoming a member of the Essence of Health coaching program? Well, head on over to www.eohcoaching.com. The essence of health is in you.